Hello buddy, welcome back to the channel. So I'm going to do a quick review of this guy right here. And I've been debating for a week whether to do this review or not, period. And we'll kind of go over why. But I thought it still needed to be done regardless. But here we are. So before we get too far into it, please subscribe, please follow the Instagram and like the Facebook page. So let's go ahead and get into it with some sort of size comparisons here. So let's just do it with the Shaman here. You kind of get the idea. The Shaman has less cutting edge, but similar size blade. Okay, so there's that. Let's do the Rat 1. Kind of similar thing going on here, less cutting edge, similar blade length overall. Let's do the 940. This is very similar overall. I mean, you got similar cutting edge, similar blade length, though the handle on this guy is longer than your 940. And let's do XM18, 3.5 inch. There you go. This is very similar overall. I mean, you got the same handle length, you got the same blade length, you got the same cutting edge length. Very, very, if not exactly the same length overall. And then let's do a Strider S&G real quick. Again, similar overall size, just like the XM18. Handle length very similar, blade length very similar. Obviously, the cutting edge on S&G is less, but that's due to the particular style or choice of design and usage. At least the usage that it was intended for. Now, let's get into the overall spec. Something you should see though is carry profile, obviously. So next to the Shaman, it's weird, I'll be honest. Because it's fatter here, kind of slims down a little bit in here. So it is overall, I would say, easier to carry this way than the Shaman. Overall, very similar to the Rat, how it swells here, then down slightly swells, and then it swells there. That's just something you'll go ahead and notice there. But one thing that is obviously different is this. It is noticeably thicker. I mean, noticeably throughout. So, I mean, some people are gonna love that, some people are gonna hate it. The idea of that is that it'll be more ergonomic, and I will say it is very ergonomic. It feels great in the hand. Jipping right here is very useful, does work well, but isn't too sharp. This is the all blacked out version. There are many different types of this knife. One thing I did notice, as you can tell that I'm touching right there, is that, so this guy has not been carried, nor has been used. So these spots, you guys see 1, 2, 3 of them at least on the blade. There are other places of it. Can't see anything on this side, at least to the naked eye. You can kind of feel them though. It's like they overcoated the blade and overcoated the handle, and like, you know how when you paint a wall and it like, you have some spots that are like a bubble or a drop, it's thicker than the other. It's noticeable. Doesn't look great, doesn't feel great, not great quality wise. I think that's the only really nitpick I have of the quality control. It's just coating either too thick or just not sanding it down properly before whatever needs to be done, just not keeping an eye out of specific details that weren't fully finished. Action is good overall. I mean, it's solid this way, solid going down. It's a controlled shut. It's not your drop shut. I mean, it goes down, but you kind of have to wiggle it to make it go down. But not bad. You could just go like that and whip it down. That's fine. It has a good pocket clip too, deep to here. There is a decent amount showing, so if you go here, you can see how much is showing after you put it in your pocket. It's a decent amount, but you kind of want that to be able to grab onto and pull it out. Pocket clip tension is good. Now, why do I personally not carry it? Honestly, it's two things. This is full DLC, full out. So my only worry is carrying it, like, because of the job that I have, it would get all scratched up, and normally I don't care about that. Normally not at all. Like, you can even look at my shaman. I mean, there's stuff all over it. You can look at, you know, all over this guy. You can look at so many of my blades, and you can tell they're used because I used every single one of my knives. I do take care of them. I do clean them. So they may not look as, like, quote unquote used or roughed up as you might expect from a knife, but a lot of the ones that I use heavily are going to be satin, non-DLC coated blades because of the scratching of the blade. It's just not something I normally care about, unless that's specifically what I'm doing to it. Like if I have, let's say if I have 2 XM18s, one is a heavy user and I do not care about it at all. One is more like a, oh, this one I'll take on to church or to an event. So it's clean, it's nice, it's pristine, it looks good. I only have one of these, and I probably will only have one of these. I want to keep it as pristine as I can, so I don't take it to work. And for like special events, there are other knives that I'd actually rather carry over it. That's the thing. Like right now, one that I would rather carry over it would be the Holt. This I will be doing a review on later, but the point being is I would rather carry this, like today, to church than this guy. Now, is it a bad knife? No. In fact, it is very good overall. In fact, it is thicker behind the edge, I'll admit, but it still cuts well. And I could show you that, but because I haven't cut anything with it yet, which is interesting. Why I would say, why would you say it cuts well, regardless of the thickness behind the bevel? Well, straight based on the blade shape, because it is a slight recurve, and has a good amount of belly, which is a great blade shape for cutting rope in general, just anything in general. So it's going to take the material more into it, and they're going to take that material into the belly. So as you cut, if you just cut straight like this, straight across, it's going to take the material more into the edge and then into that belly, and it's going to cut it really nicely. But also because of the belly, the way it is, you can go like this and cut into the belly that way too. So it can cut things in multiple ways very well. It's flat out on the blade shape. The blade geometry is very suitable for cutting well, cutting for a long period of time, and not really wearing down, but also keeping the edge too. So it's a little bit thicker, so it's not gonna be it's not gonna glide through things as well, but it's gonna actually be more durable of an edge. So you're gonna get that durability of the edge. You're gonna be able to get that blade style that cuts well, cutting through things. You get that belly, so it's easier to cut down into something. And that recurve, so when you're cutting something, it's gonna drag into the blade. That's with just going straight. So if you go like this at that angle, it's only gonna make it cut better. So this one, I have not decided whether I'm gonna sell or not. I have not. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm gonna do, keep it or not keep it. It's probably the most loose knife in my collection right now. The most likely or easiest one to go. I will say though, the flipper tab is designed well, not aggressive, doesn't hurt, but then again, I wouldn't be the best to say if it's hard to flip or not, because I flip so many different styles that my finger is definitely tougher than some people, because I've handed someone a flipper tab that I didn't think hurt at all, and then they're like, this kind of sucks, because they don't do it nearly as much, and so I didn't think much of it. And so for me, compared to other knives, it does well. It's fine. There's no issue with it at all. One thing that is interesting is it sits right in there. There is no blade play left to right, up and down, nothing. And there is no detent lash, so it doesn't wiggle at all in there. It has a good detent. You can kind of, right there. Good detent strength, not weak, nothing like that. But overall, it just isn't my style. And I think part of that actually stems from the aggressive milling. So there's a ton of milling in here, which makes it lighter, which is great. But weirdly, it's because it's so aggressive and this is so thick, it creates a hollow sounding feel. Like, it's smooth and everything, but overall it seems hollow, which is both on sound and feel. I don't know if that makes sense, but it gives a weird hollow feel, hollow sound. And so it gives off a cheap feel and vibe. And the reality is this is not cheaply made at all. But so if you think of, heavy milling, let's think what's a good knife that has a lot of milling. I got one. And that I also use a lot, and I need to sharpen the neon. Like, this has tons of milling, right? But because this is not nearly as thick, not nearly as thick, this doesn't have that feel or sound of being hollow or cheap, where this does. There's so much milling in here, and this is such a thick handle that it gives a weird feel, it gives a weird look and sound. And weirdly enough, the sound of things is very important. The sound of your door opening, closing, specifically closing. When you get into someone's car and it closes, it sounds hollow and thin. Most people would dislike that. You want it to sound solid, safe, secure, capable, not cheap. And so sound of a button pushing, clicking, being solid is a very good, nice thing, right? Where this has a thin, hollow sounding door like feel and sound. And it's a very unique blade too. It's a very unique handle. It feels good in the hand. I know it's not cheaply made, but it's hard. It's something hard to get past. It really is. And what's interesting is this blade right here is a lot more narrow than you're expecting. You look at the pictures and you look at it online, you can probably even look at it in this video and think that doesn't look proportionally weird at all, does it? But looking at it in person, it's hard to deny that it is proportionally weird. The blade to handle is weird, because one thing I think that throws it off the most is obviously you want your blade to be inset into the handle, so the handle's going to be a little bit wider, but also with the handle being so much thicker at the same time and being wider, and I think this blade shape cries out to be thicker. In my opinion, it cries out to be dieware like thick. It has that feeling of, oh, I thought the blade would be like this. That would be thicker. It would be, the flat up here would be higher up, and it had more time to drop, and it would be thinner at the edge. But it doesn't. It doesn't have that at all. So it's a weird aesthetic that I don't have, I'm not really looking for, don't really care for. It is definitely a nice piece to have in my collection, that's for sure. And I know it's solid made. It is like overall this is very high quality. The only really nitpick I have, a true nitpick, is the just bad coating job. That's also why I'm not using this one, because if that on this particular one, if that's an issue there, then how long is this coating gonna last? Is there an actual issue with the coating itself? I don't know. Will scratch easier, will actually just completely come off easier than, let's say, the Shaman, where it's hasn't, I haven't had an issue with that at all ever. So that's, I mean, that's the only really nitpick or concern I have. Otherwise, it's just not my style. And that's one reason why I do make videos, is because, look, everybody has a taste. And so I bring this to you. It's like, maybe, like, this is your style. Maybe you like this blade shape, but maybe you like this blade shape to be thinner and not nearly as wide. Even though I have to say, it's a blade shape that I would expect to be a wider blade, taller, and it's not. So it's kind of throws off your senses a little bit. It is a solid knife, solid built. If this is your aesthetic, go for it. The only thing is, like, be wary of the weird aesthetics, like the fact the blade kind of seems off. The ratio is a little bit weird. And know that it is thicker this way. It is extremely hollowed out, which gives a weird hollow sounding feel and sound. But again, if you can get past those particular things, then yeah, this overall is a solid blade. In fact, I would encourage you to pick one up that doesn't have a DLC blade and use it, love it, because it would be a great user. The ergonomics are great. No really hot spots. You can force a hot spot if you like grip and then pull down near where your pinky is. You kind of can push into the pocket clip, but as long as you're not doing that and you have a grip like this, there's no actual real hot spot. There's a lanyard, little like pillar for the lanyards there, if you do care for that. I don't care for that, period. Anyways, there's not really much else to say. It is a good knife. It's just not my cup of tea. Is it going to stay in my collection? That's up to debate. Is it good to have in my collection? Yes. I think it's a great piece. I think it's solidly built, well built. It is performance-oriented overall, especially with the handle and the type of blade shape you get. But I don't know if it's one to stay in my collection. But if you like this style of blade, like this style of handle, and like that it's extraordinarily milled out, then I would totally go for it, 100%. But at the end of the day, like I say, it's your money. I'm just here to be like, hey, this is a cool knife. Is it something you should look into, look at? Or it's something you shouldn't look into, look at. If the things that bother me about this would bother you, then don't get it. If things that bother me about it don't bother you, then I would pick it up, because it is a great knife. It is ergonomic, unique, performance-oriented, will do you well for a long time. And with that, that is everything I have for this video. You guys have a great rest of your day.